Hey, everyone. Welcome to the No BS with Billy and Landon show. We're glad you met us today. My man is all prepared and ready to go. As he just showed you, he's had his Red Bulls today.
Ready to rock. Ready to rock.
Were you up to a six-pack yet, or how many have you had today so far?
No, I'm only on number 3. The day is young still in California.
Yeah, it is. Let's see. What time is it right now? Oh, it's a little after 3 here in Texas, so I guess a little after 1.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, and you already had 3.
We're wide awake today, baby.
You're ready to go. Awake. Awesome. Well, hey, today we're going to talk a little bit about margin pricing and why it's important that we learn how to figure it out. But once you figure it out, which is very simple, it makes a lot of sense in how to affect your financial statements. Because if you can figure out how long it takes you to do something, you can have job time efficiency. It's not that hard to do. It's just the hard part is figuring it all out and keeping it. If you're not on a software that's built with job time efficiency involved in already, which there aren't any others other than Sarah, of course. In Sarah, we use job time efficiency, and we've been able to build a very efficient business. We have some of the highest EBITDAs in the industry because of this, because we can literally grab this data and learn a lot about what it really costs us to do a job. And so,
well, Billy, before you go on, I think a lot of people, just from a layman's perspective, we'll call it, a lot of people don't understand. They hear the buzzwords, they kind of grasp a concept, but when you say margin pricing, when you say job time efficiency, can we break that down and explain it further and define it?
Absolutely. So, since this is your first time to join the show today, Landon, that's what we do here.
That's what we do here?
Yeah.
All right.
So I have to give
out the whiteboard.
So the way it goes is you start to show, you introduce yourself, and then you kind of tell them what you're going to talk about, and then we break it down.
We're gonna get into detail, huh?
Yeah.
It's a detail thing.
Well, so out in California, detail is like when you get your car all shiny, but on podcasts, it's getting down to the into the weeds,
the nitty gritty.
Right. We don't say in the weeds because you're in California, because you guys are always doing the weed.
Everyone's always in the weed over here.
Yeah. So, all right. So, again, margin pricing. As we know, flat rate pricing and time and material are the two standard types of pricing. Most progressive residential HVAC, plumbing, electrical companies are on some sort of flat rate pricing. And I would assume there's, from the people I've talked to, there are still a lot of folks still doing time and material, more so in the commercial space than in the residential space. I think the residential space is, I don't know the percentage, but the majority, I would assume, is using flat rate pricing.
Yeah.
And
I think the way that most people think about flat rate pricing, it's either some large book or what we used to refer to it as menu pricing. So you go to McDonald's, you see a menu, and that's kind of flat rate pricing, right?
That's right.
It's not based on anything other than kind of consumer psychology, that people want to see a flat rate price or a menu price for something so they know what they're getting into. It's not, there's no math behind it necessarily. It's just consumer.
Yeah. And another way I like to describe it as well, flat rate pricing, menu pricing, is, for instance, like this shirt I have on. I would imagine this shirt, it's just a regular shirt, was probably bought and embroidered for $25. Okay.
I was thinking Goodwill $3, but go ahead.
Well, that's what it'll go for when I'm done with it. Yeah. And would I want to pay $15 for the material and $10 for the person in Vietnam that made it? Or would I want to pay $25? Well, I just want to pay $25. And that's menu pricing, flat rate pricing, right? And then that's been one of the biggest things I think that has happened in our industry. I think it's one of the more positive things that have happened. Flat rate pricing, menu pricing has been very advantageous to my career. It is really, I was an early adopter. I started in the 90s. I didn't wait any time. I did it right away when I saw it and heard about it. And back then you were chastised if you were doing flat rate, that people just did not understand the value of it and why you needed it in your business. Okay. But that was 25 years ago. Okay. And so I had to evolve beyond that, because when I first started flat rate pricing, it literally was a scroll of calculations. I remember I went to Contractors 2000 and it looked like one piece of paper, right? But it unfolded and it would touch the ground. You know, if I held it above my head, it would literally touch the ground, and you had to go and figure out all these calculations. And once you figured all that stuff out, you had to divide it by 2, and that was your price, your flat rate price. And so not really a scientific way to do it, but a great way to get started, okay? Where margin pricing is different, it is exactly like your P&L statement, profit and loss statement. The P&L of your business, your income statement, you know, all that stuff is extremely important to a business owner. It's one of the things I think that gets the most overlooked, because when I talk to most contractors and do my coaching, the majority of them do not understand how to read a P&L and may not even have looked at it because of the confusion.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't understand the P&L, we're going to give you a basic breakdown of it. And if you do understand, you're going to enjoy this margin pricing and what it can do for you. And so if you don't know how to read P&Ls, maybe you want to watch the show more than once to understand, you know, till you get this. Or maybe you get it right away, and that would be awesome. So first and foremost, on a P&L statement, it's laid out by top to bottom, okay? From the top, you have revenue, and then within revenue, you have revenue is basically the money coming in, okay? And then you have COGS, COGS, cost of goods sold. And what this is just the cost to actually perform work. That's all this is. And so things that would be in this category of COGS would be labor costs for field workers, not the office. That's overhead, okay? I just want to be clear. If you are out on a job, you are in this COG calculation. So you're a technician, you're an installer, you're a helper, you're a salesperson, you're in this, okay? Also, you could have a subcontractor in this as well. Okay. And next up, you would have materials. So the stuff that you bought to perform the work. And then you have miscellaneous items like permitting, stuff like
financing
that. All stuff like that. Okay. So to keep it very basic though, let's just think about labor, materials, and subcontractors. Okay. Keep it very basic. All right. So you have your revenue, and then you subtract those costs. You subtract what it costs for the labor, you subtract what it costs for the material, and you subtract what it costs for the subcontractors and those miscellaneous items. Okay. Now you have what is called your gross profit. Okay. And this is the most important thing in the business. The bottom line profit is what we all want, but it can't be achieved without the gross profit, because the bottom line is called the net profit. Okay. So you've got the gross profit, and then below the gross profit is the operating expense. And the operating expense is what it costs you for your rent, your insurance, yourself, people that work for you in the office, and all those things, cars, dues, subscriptions, travel, meals, anything you can think of, that's in your operating expense. Once you have all that in there, then your net profit is what's left over. Okay. That's the anatomy of a P&L statement. So we got revenue, COGS, gross profit, operating expense, net profit. That's the simplest I can make it. Okay.
Yep.
And that's not hard. It's just 5 things. All right. So now, if you want to have successful business, you want to focus on that gross profit, the one that's affected by the COGS and the revenue. Okay. That's the one you want to focus on. And so typically in this industry, if I can see a company at a 50% gross profit, I'm ecstatic. I am so happy for that company that they're achieving a true 50% gross profit. But however, I don't see that very often. And to me, that's probably the lowest you should go is a 50%, 50-50.
Yeah, and I say that too. I think that's the model. But I'll tell you, from the P&Ls I see across the country, private equity groups, the consolidated P&Ls, CEOs that I talk to, very few of them, although they set the target there, very few of them ever achieve it.
Yep. And so therefore, that's why we're talking about margin pricing instead of flat rate pricing, because as you can see, flat rate pricing hasn't solved the problem. You don't have a direct correlation to your financials when you're figuring up your flat rate pricing. And so with the margin pricing, I'm going to build my pricing just like the price book, just like the P&L I just described. I'm going to figure as a revenue what I'm going to charge for that job. I'm going to have in there what it costs me to do that job, the COGS, right? And I'm going to have the gross profit. Okay. So I can actually perform this number perfectly. And so I actually did this with a client today. All right. So this client was actually selling a 3-ton system for $12,500, which I think has been the number now for about 10 years. And we've had a lot of price increases.
It's kind of been staying there at that 12.5 number.
Yeah.
People feel comfortable with that.
I don't understand why, because materials doubled and tripled since that time.
I understand why, because people feel comfortable with it.
That's right.
I will tell you the anomaly that I see with pricing, and I've seen for 25 years now, is that pricing is a reflection of what you're comfortable with charging, and not a reflection of what the math should be.
Let's dive into that real quick. So
yeah,
here's where I think technicians that sell, salesmen that sell, anybody that sells something out there in the world of HVAC, plumbing, electrical, whatever, garage doors, whatever it is you're doing, just because think about it like this, you're an expert at this. If you're a plumber, you know how to do plumbing, right? And so to you, it becomes natural. If you're an AC technician, you know how to fix air conditioners. So to you, it becomes natural. And so what we do is we put the value based off of how easy it is for ourselves. When we should the value should be on what the perceived value from the customer is. And that's why we don't raise our pricing or get our pricing proper, is because we don't value ourselves. That's really what it comes down to.
And if you, again, not to offend anybody, but if I offend you, I offend you. So
don't worry, it does it to me all the time.
If you say the words, well, my market is different, or I'm just in a small town, and my market won't accept that, or people charge this in my market, or I got people every day charging $7,000 for a job that I charge $10,000 for. All of that stuff is irrelevant. And it's just a reflection of weakness on your part.
I have a perfect example. I have a dear friend of mine reached out to me about 3 years ago, has a second generation plumbing HVAC plumbing company in a small town in Texas. The entire county population of that area is less than 200,000. The town itself is around 60, 70,000, I believe. Second generation company, doing about $3.5 million in sales, been sitting there forever, which $3.5 million in that size population, I thought was pretty fantastic. Went to work, got him working on margin pricing, getting his pricing right, getting his job time efficiency right, all the things that he needed, got him all straightened out. Went to $7 million in the first 12 months, put more money in the bank than they've ever had ever, repeated it again the following year. And then now I think we're year 3, he grew even more, all in a 200,000 population county. And counties in Texas are not small. So he has to cover, most counties are at least 50 miles wide in most cases. So that right there dispels any excuse. It's just mindset.
It does.
It's just mindset.
I mean, are you familiar with where Del Rio, Texas is?
I am.
So, we used to use, thank God we had this guy, because he was always our pricing example. Because Del Rio, Texas is a small border town with very small population. And I don't even think I'm pretty sure the majority don't speak English in the town. And he, we modeled it out, showed him what he needed to be. This is 20 some odd years ago, and he needed to be, $300, $400 an hour, something like that. And everybody else is a quarter of what he's charging. And so we just did it, and he had the same level of success, massively scaled the business, doing less calls, etc. But every time we would get somebody from a podunk town, be like, you know what, call this guy. If this guy can do it in this town, there's absolutely no excuse for you.
Yep.
Because I guarantee in your town there are people that are doing things that you would think that they're not doing. It's math. It's just math. And if you don't abide by the math, I mean, math is like it's not a universal law, but technically it is a universal law, right? If you don't follow the math, what's going to happen?
Disaster.
You're not going to get the results that you
That's
want,
right.
plain and simple.
And I'm just fortunate. I'm a math nerd. Like, I nerd out on numbers. You just ask anybody around here. We're always tinkering with numbers. And so I just love it. And I try to inspire people to get that way, to really just nerd out on the numbers. And it'll really make a big difference. I think the best practices groups make it more complicated than it needs to be. It's just simple.
Yeah,
Let's just get simple. Let's just get simple here. And so I can't get any simpler than what we described earlier: revenue, COGS, gross profit, operating expense, profit, net profit. Okay. So when we do flat rate pricing, we don't have a direct correlation to our P&L. And I want to have a direct correlation to my revenue, my COGS, and my gross profit. I want to have a direct correlation to that. And so I needed to figure out, how do I build pricing with this direct correlation to those factors in the P&L statement? And so I came up with a way to do it. It's a very simple process. It really isn't that hard. So this is what you do, Landon. So pay attention. I know you
preach, brother, preach it.
There you go. So what you do is you take a 1-year financial and you look at your COGS labor, and your COGS labor include everyone that does work on a job. That would be your technicians, your helpers, your installers, your install helpers, your delivery drivers. They're functioning inside the COGS in my world. Okay. And your subcontractors and your salespeople. If I didn't say that earlier, your salespeople. So what you do is very simple. What was a total revenue or labor cost paid in a 12-month period? So you look at your financial statements, and it says that you paid, let's just pick $1 million in labor. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's 100,000 or $1 million or 10 million. It doesn't matter. Okay. Whatever that number is, it has to be the real number. Obviously it is. You have payroll. It all is real. Okay. Now you have this real number, and let's say it's $1 million. All right. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to go, during that 12-month period, how many technicians did I have? Not how many salespeople, not how many helpers, not how many installers, how many technicians that actually generate the revenue, right? Because in 95% of the cases, a tech is the first to arrive. Okay. Now, for easy math, we're going to say you had 10 technicians. All right. And you paid them each $100,000. Okay. All right. So you had 10 technicians. You paid them each $100,000. Okay. All right. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Now let's talk about what is the amount of hours that a person works in a year. So the way you figure up the amount of hours that a person works is a very simple rule. You don't have to go through, look at all your payroll records and do all that, all your overtime. Don't even worry about it. I'm going to give you the number. So there's, on a 40-hour work week, there's 2,080 hours a year. Okay. However, I've subtracted out the 80 hours. Why? Because vacation, holiday, and sick days off, right? So they literally work for you 50 weeks a year. It's the way I figure it. So again, I do easy math. Okay. It's not funny math. It's just real math. So this way, I'm actually paying for the vacation time when I use a smaller number. Okay. So now we paid out $1 million and we have 2,000 hours. So you take the 2,000 hours and divide it into the $1 million and you get $500, I believe is the number.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and you have 10 technicians. So you take the 10 technicians divided into 500 hours and your labor cost, COST, not what you should charge. Your labor cost is $50 per hour. Okay. Your cost, not what you would charge somebody. Okay. All right.
So you're using 10 hours in a work day, or what? Where's it? Let's do that again.
So 2,000 hours is a 40-hour work week, which is an 8-hour day on a 5-day work week, right?
Okay. All right. And you got $500 is the cost for.
And yes, that would be $500. You take
okay.
1 million divided by 2,000. Again, we're not using actual numbers. We're using play numbers for easy.
Okay. 500.
And then you have 10 techs. So then your actual cost is $50. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now then, there's this thing called burden. There's this that we must figure. So we take the $50 times 1.4. What burden is their insurance costs, their benefits costs.
FICA, FUTA, SUTA.
All that stuff, insurance costs, okay? So you take 50, I'm going to have to use my trusty calculator here, $50 times 1.4, and you have 70, now you're at $70 cost. Be clear here, per hour.
Cost per hour, yep.
Okay. Now then, let's take we'll do two scenarios. We'll do a complete air conditioner and we'll do a 50-gallon gas water heater. Okay, let's do the water heater first. So we know what the price is. We know that we're at $70, right, guys? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now we're at 70 and we want to sell a water heater. Okay. How many hours does it take to put in a water heater, to drive to that service call, put it in, collect the money, and go on your way?
Are we assuming that you have the water heater on the truck, or you have to you drive to the service call, then you sell the water heater, you got to pick up the water heater, well, sending it in install crew?
We can get very complicated on that, or we could say, you know what, sometimes we have it on trucks, sometimes we don't. So we're going to add the time. We're going to,
add in the time to go pick it up.
One thing about my software, it'll actually tell you that, so you can actually know the true number, whether you have it or not. Okay, so let's just say for easy grins, it takes 3 hours. It takes you a half an hour to drive there. It takes you 2 hours to put it in and a half an hour to clean up and get your money. All right, so 3 hours. So you take that $70 a cost times 3. So we're at $210, right? That's your labor cost. And then we add in the $400 for the water heater. And I'm guessing on that, boys and girls, I don't know what a water heater costs. That's my bad. Not what they pay.
Yeah, I'd like to live in this world where water heaters cost $400 and you can get them done in 3 hours. But
okay,
you are the efficient man.
So 610 is what I come up with, and now we want to figure a margin. And like we mentioned earlier, we want to make sure the company is at least at 50% gross margin, right, or gross profit.
Yeah.
So we take the 610, and then we divide by 0.5 because we want a 50% gross profit or gross margin, right? So let me explain that. It needs to be a factor of 100 when you're dividing to create a margin, okay? So whatever number you use, if you want a 60 margin, you divide by 0.4 or 0.40. That makes it easier for you. 40 and 60.
Inverse.
Yeah. 40 and 60 equal 100. If you want a 65 margin, you divide by 0.35, right? It always has to add up to 100. Okay, so we're going to divide by 0.0, and so the answer is $1,220 because we did, fake numbers here, guys. Just bear with me. So you should be selling that thing for $12.20 on this scenario. So I actually had a client that I was coaching just before this, and he was at $110.84. So let's use his number real quick. All right. So he's at 110.84 times 3 hours, right? We agreed on 3 hours.
For the example, I think it's at least double that in reality.
You think it's 6 hours?
Installing a water heater?
Yeah.
It's a 6-hour job.
You're going to freak some plumbers out because they're over there saying, I can do it in an hour and 90 minutes.
Yeah, but sometimes, again, you got to go pick it up. Sometimes you have
that's
it on
right.
the truck. Sometimes
there you go. Explain your motive here. Or maybe you have an install crew. The plumber takes off and installers show up.
Yeah, and maybe I just have crappy installers. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. All right.
Maybe it's supposed to be a low boy. You got to switch it out.
I'm gonna.
Maybe I'm the helper. Then we're in 12 hours.
Yeah, maybe. All right. So let's do the 110.84 then. Times 6 hours. Make that man happy. And then we're going to add in the cost of the water heater, which again, we're totally guessing $400.
$400.
And we have a total of $1,065, and we want that 50 margin. So we take that 1,065.04 and divide it by 0.50. Remember, factor of 100. And our sale price is $21.30. And there you go. Now, why you may go, well, I'm already charging exactly that number, $21.30. Yeah, well, you got lucky, right? You just got lucky because
if that works, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, this way, I am positively affecting it. Now, let's say that we're collecting this data, and over the course of a year, we realized that we were off. We didn't realize the true time that it took was 7 hours, let's say. Okay. Then we can see in our P&L that instead of getting that 50 margin, we're getting a 48. We're getting a 48 because we didn't figure the time properly. You never want to, once you fix on a margin that you want, you leave it where it is and you manipulate time to get to achieve it. So let's think about this for a second. He's throwing out this really big number of 6 hours, right? But let me tell you why he's right and then why I didn't give any pushback and why I waited till now to say something. Because I don't ever say he's right is one of the reasons. But I'm going to go ahead and do this. But here's what he wasn't even thinking about, but he was right but he was actually right, but he wasn't thinking about it. Let's say it only takes 3 hours, like I was saying, but you have a 50% close rate. Aha. That's why you use 6 hours, because you need to charge for the times that you don't sell anything. That is the secret sauce here for margin pricing. That's the secret. The secret is, how do I charge money for 0 ticket calls? How do I get paid for those? The problem with flat rate pricing, you divide everything by 2 and they want you to be at 50% success. I want you to be at 100% success with margin pricing. And so now I know that for every water heater call I go on, I'm not going to sell one every other time. Well, since I didn't install it, it still took me an hour and a half, 2 hours to go there, diagnose it, try to make the sale, and then walk away with nothing. So what do we do with that 2 hours? We have to put that in all of our other tasks, whether it's not just water heater tasks, all of your tasks, to make up for the close rate. And you can only do this with margin pricing. And so my motto when I start this off in every one of my financial meetings with my employees at Billy Go and with the people I coach, you have to learn how to charge for every minute of everyone's time all the time.
You mean to tell me if you learn to close at a higher rate and you were closing more deals and you're closing almost every deal, the customer wouldn't have to pay so much?
Yes, it actually gets cheaper.
Shocking.
Yes,
Shocking.
you can lower your pricing if you improve your close rate. But here's the beauty of it is, here's the beauty. You can have lower pricing because you now know what to charge. Or maybe it's got to be higher. In this case, with scenario I had with my coaching customer earlier, he was at 12.5. Still in 2025, he was at 12.5. Well, the math, when we did the math, he should have been, I actually have it written right here. He should have been at 14,270. And he was at 12.5.
Yep.
And then the reason why he wasn't making money, it started appearing right before his eyes. And he was like, holy cow, I see it. Because the whole time we were in the coaching session, the financial statements were pulled up, his financial statements. And we went through the numbers, and it all worked out, and it clicked. And when it clicked, it started working for him. All right. So what I got from him is April, right? January through April. And the progression from January to April is insane. So we went from a gross profit in the high 20s, low 30s. So now we're at 50 in 4 months' time. In 4 months' time. And it's not because we got more expensive, because in some cases we're not. It's just we know exactly where we need to be. And then you take it to your
20s, low 30s. Wow.
Yeah. And so it's just amazing how quickly this works. And then you could go to your sales guy, the guy that's out there and he's popping, $2 to $4 or $5 million in for you. He's selling off of these flippers. Well, he's a discount king, right? And you start showing him this and say, this is what it must be. And you're not a real salesman unless you can do it. You can give away $4 million or you can sell $5 million.
I had this exact conversation today with a GM at a local business here. And he used the words, well, I love this market. We got a lot of PE in the market. But like in times like this, when it's not a lot of heat, we're not getting a lot of demand, I can take skinnier deals because, I'm not a big PE shop. Meaning, maybe has less overhead, which, might be correct. But you should never say the words, I could take a skinnier deal. I can do, I can maneuver my pricing. You formulate your pricing to be whatever pricing is required and sell at that price.
Yeah.
Period.
And if you get it right,
PE shop might have to give a bigger price because of the overhead. But, if you're doing it right, you formulate your own pricing based on your own margins, based on your own cost profile, and don't deviate from that.
Yep. One thing I love about PE is they have to create a certain return for their investors, right? And so you should think the same way that the PE firm is thinking. And so they manipulate and work on their pricing until they get that return, because if they don't get the return, the investors stop giving them money. And they want to perform and they want to make the money for all the investors in themselves, right? And so why don't we treat our
investor in your own company, right?
Yeah. You're your own PE firm. You've said that many times on the show, Landon. And so start thinking like they're thinking. How do you get yourself that 15% return for yourself and all your investors? It's the same thing. They're just doing the work that you don't want to do to figure it out how to get there. Now, the advantage for you is, as an independent, their cost structure is much, much higher. There's a lot of people pulling out fees and stuff for their services that don't occur in your business. And they still make their 15%, right? Because the actual private equity firm is actually, they make a monthly stipend, if you will, on having the businesses. So you don't have that expense. It's kind of like a franchise fee. It's just not a franchise fee, but they pay that you don't pay as an independent. So therefore, by law of mathematics, you should be less expensive anyway. You should be a more affordable option for a customer by that simple fact. And by learning how to do this with your financial statements so that you can improve your P&L based off of what you learned. But the goal is you have to decide what your gross margin should be, your gross profit, which I say no less than 50. And if you're out of 50, then it's time to keep working in increments to go higher. And the way you do that is you fix your margin and you leave it there. It stays fixed until you achieve it on your P&L.
Yep.
And how do you get to achieve it? You manipulate time to achieve it.
Yep.
And that's how you do this.
That's what I love. That's the difference between flat rate and margin pricing, is that I've heard countless times. I've been used to build spreadsheets to help explain it to partners of mine in businesses, where I've got my flat rate pricing set at whatever dollar amount, and that dollar amount should yield a 50% gross margin minimum, but my gross margin is showing up at 40%. Where's all the money going? Where's it going? And then it's like, well, it's going to inefficient things. It might be that you didn't account for meeting time, and you didn't account for absenteeism, and you didn't account for all of these 8 to 10% of things that can just happen, right? But if you do it the way that you're suggesting, where you take the actual data, the actual numbers, and then you just modify time, you can really dial in the correct margin.
You can dial it in. Yep. And it happens as quickly as you do it. And this is just very simple process. This isn't complicated. This isn't hard. It's very simple, basic math, right? But we're using numbers that are real. Of course, we didn't. We use examples, but you'll use real numbers that are real to you. That's why global price books. That's why best practices groups with a structured way of doing things as a group don't work. They don't work.
We used to give out the menu prices, and we would say, all right, what's your calculation? Do you want the $250 an hour, the $300 an hour, the $400 an hour, the $500? And here's your price book. Here you go. And we use the average task time per task across the country, kind of national averages, right?
Mm-hmm.
As how we figured out what you should be charging. And everybody's margin was all over the place. You think everybody's using the same price book, they have the same margin. But why weren't the margins the same?
That's right.
You got discounting, you got returns, you got meeting time, you got other inefficiencies, you got people taking twice as long on jobs as they should. Like
close rate, flip rate. All those things factor in, and you have to have a tool. You can't do this on a spreadsheet. It would be so big by the time you figured it all out. All this information is so old, it doesn't matter anymore. I've had talks with Ken Goodrich about this. He goes, yeah, we tried building those spreadsheets. I mean, by the time you got the information, it was old information. So you have to be able to use your software to do it like we do. And it just gives you the answers. It knows everybody that touched that job. And so, I'll give you a perfect example. In HVAC, for years, everybody used 8 hours with flat rate, 8 hours to install an air conditioner. Well, Well, then that right there should tell you flat rate pricing, as good as it's been for the industry, is not meant for accuracy. It's just a global. And that's why global practices don't work. You can't.
That everybody pays the same amount in the same fashion, takes the same amount of time on every single task, has the same level of absenteeism. It's irresponsible almost.
Yeah. And how can it be an 8-hour job when you got two guys installing it for 8 hours? That right there says it's 16 hours.
16 hours. Yeah.
And then you add in the salesman's 2 hours and the flipping text 2 hours. And now you're at 20 hours.
Yep.
Right?
You have to account for all those hours.
So you have to account for them. And then you have a close rate of 50%. So what is it now? Now it's 24 hours. So it takes 24 hours to install that system and be profitable and to pay for the customer that said no when you did all that other stuff. Right?
Yep.
And so you add in the time for the rejections or the non-sales. And now you have the ability to charge everyone for every minute of every day. And that is the holy grail. So I ran at 79% in 2024 efficiency, meaning 79% of the time we were getting paid for everyone that was on the payroll. 79%. The industry average, according to a poll that was done a few years ago, is 38%. So we were better than double And so another way I like to look at it is if you currently have 5 techs and you improve your efficiency for real, where you can measure it like I do, to 79%, it's the same as having 10 techs when you only have 5.
Yeah.
That's the power of this
It's way more profitable because you don't have the overhead costs associated with managing the techs.
There's 5 people you're not insuring. There's 5 trucks you're not rolling. All because we figured out how to pay for the stuff that doesn't make us money. Like you've been saying, it's something as simple as meetings, going and getting gas. How much time does your company waste every day filling up vehicles? How much lost time is there? How much lost time is there when you make your technicians come in every single day and do a debrief? How much time is lost there? Well, if you want them to come in and do a debrief every day, figure out how much that time is and get it into your pricing.
Include it. Yep.
How much time do you spend waiting for fuel? Well, it's not how long you spend waiting for fuel. It's how long you spend getting donuts, going to the bathroom, hanging out in line, then getting your gas, and then walking as slowly as you can. Back to.
I mean, you're describing 90% of my day.
So, exactly. And so why not get paid for that time? You're paying those people. Think about it another way. You're paying that person that's in that truck
You
right now while he's getting fuel.
This business can be boiled down to one thing. We are labor brokers.
Yes.
Right? You know, it's 100%. Some
100%.
people are stock brokers. We are labor brokers. Which means we have a certain amount of that we're going to pay for that labor, you know, regardless of what they're doing, whether they're sitting at home, whether they're sitting in a training room, whether they're sitting generating revenue, we're paying that person. And we need to achieve a return if we're going to be successful on that person. And we need to outline that return, and the return should, you know, end up with a certain net profit. But we have to account for every second of that time and charge for it.
Yes. Now, check out this. You want to hear about the multiplier effect?
Let's do it.
All right. So when we talk to our employees, our technicians and our salespeople and all that, we're always talking about revenue. Oh, I love this guy. He brings in so much revenue, right? Well, if you change your story to efficiency, how efficient are you? Are you 80% efficient in the field, 60%, 100%? If you change the story and teach them about their own inefficiencies in a day-to-day, and what's going to happen? Once you make them aware of it, they're going to want to improve on it. Okay? Now, we know.
Once you compensate and raise and do all of those things based on the efficiency and based on the performance, they're going to want to improve on it.
They want to improve on it because if you make it a standard of your way you're coaching and the way you're mentoring and the way you're keeping score, right?
Yep.
Make it a way and make efficiency the way. And revenue, that's a byproduct of great efficiency.
Yeah.
Right. And you want more revenue, get more efficient. If you want more profit, get more efficient.
Get more efficient.
Okay.
Yep.
So now we've got these folks, these guys and girls, they're fully aware of the efficiency model. And as you know, anything that you've ever done in a pay system or any rules or whatever it is you're trying to do, they can figure out how to manipulate the system and make more money.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened to you?
Happens every time, all the time. It's like a law of human nature.
Yes, right. And why not? It is what it is. It is human nature. Well, how are you going to defeat efficiency if you're aware of it? You're going to figure it out, right? The only way to defeat efficiency is to sell more tasks so you get more time.
Yeah. Yep.
So what better way to manipulate the system, right?
And to be more productive.
And to be, So when you sell a water heater, don't be afraid to charge to have, if it's up in an attic and there's $150 fee to put it in the attic, you need to charge for that. Not only that $150 fee may have 100 minutes on it. Now you're more efficient because you just sold another 100 minutes and you pop that sucker up there in what? 20 minutes? 10, whatever, right? That's how you do it. And so that's
you're
how
like
you
gamifying it. You're gamifying efficiency for the techs.
That's right. And so when they understand that, things start happening. And so I'll show you in this example where I have a technician, and for the year, he was 97% efficient for the entire year. It was insane how this works. And he did $1.7 million in revenue. The time that it took to do the jobs, like his sold time, and then the time it took to actually do the jobs, includes the time that the installers were on those jobs that he sold, the time that a salesperson was on that job, the time that he was on that job, plus all their time that they were getting gas, that they were attending meetings, that they were flirting with the dispatcher. Whatever it was they were doing at 97% efficiency, it doesn't matter, because we build for it.
Is it true that you're the dispatcher?
Yeah, it's funny. Hey, it's funny you say that. It's so funny you say that, because we had an office meeting today, and I was telling them, I said, everybody's role is important. It doesn't matter where you are. And I said, and so whatever role you're in, you're the best person for that role, because this business would burn down to the ground if I was the dispatcher. I promise.
That's right.
No, you
would get distracted by all the flirting.
Yeah.
I mean, the 97% efficiency, that guy's got to, wake up every day with a intention. Probably doesn't do a lot of smoking. Probably doesn't do a lot of, even eating. This guy seems. But my guess is this person is a relatively healthy person that shows up on time, probably a little bit early, does what they need to do, goes out, wows the customers, comes home, does it again.
Yep.
Mr. Consistent.
Very simple. Yep. Yeah. And I'm telling you, his revenue numbers shot up when he started focus on efficiency. He went from like just under $1 million to 1.7 the next year, all because of the efficiency effect. And that's a great year for a technician. We're not talking about a salesperson here. He can sell air conditioners, but he is a technician first and foremost. And he runs old tune-ups too. So there's a lot of zero tickets, and those are included. And so we also factor in that in our time. We figure it out. We go, okay, we spent this many hours doing tune-ups this year on zero ticket tune-ups. How do I put this into the pricing of all of my tasks? So when you spread it out over the entire price book, it could be 3 minutes per job. All right. And so I'm at $1 a minute. Okay, fine. It's $3 more. It is what it is. But that's how you do it. But you gotta have the data. And so once you have that data, you can figure this out. And that's how you run an extremely profitable business. I hope this was educational for everyone. And I hope we get, if you have any questions, just, reach out online, wherever you watch this or wherever you listen to it, or you can email me at billy@billygo.com. And let's
also email him if you want to flirt with him.
In case I'm a dispatcher that day.
I'm not going to let that one go.
Yeah, you're not. I can see that already. But I appreciate y'all listening. Hopefully this is helpful. You can at least get started with this. Maybe you don't have the data or whatever, but at least
do the math.
Do the math.
At least do the math.
That's
the
a start.
Assignment for everybody listening. Go get your P&L for last year. Take a look at your consolidated labor costs and do the math that we're talking about here.
Divided by 2,000, then divided by the number of techs. That's all you got to do. It's that simple. And that'll tell you your per hour cost. And then you decide what margins you need. And I recommend you start at a 50, because I promise you, you're probably not there at the moment.
Yeah.
And if you can get to a 50, you can make good money if you can control your operating expenses. Operating expenses shouldn't exceed 35%. So there's a 15% profit at a 50% gross margin all day long.
Yeah.
So, and we get into that next. But really and truly, it doesn't matter. Oh, there's one more thing. This is so big. I got to talk about this. Oh my gosh. For every 1 point you fix your gross profit, it's 10% to the net profit.
Yeah.
That's a big number. So let's get this done. You can do it. Margin pricing. You can get it done. Every week we're here to give you nuggets, golden nuggets, if you will, to help you run your business better. And it's very important that you like and subscribe so we can build this channel and we can help everyone in this industry as much as possible. So thanks again for watching.
No BS with Billy and Landon is produced and delivered to you by Sarah Systems. At Sarah Systems, we've created a better way to run your home service business and unlock unprecedented growth. Our field service software was designed by real home service professionals to help you save steps, charge for previously unbillable time, and win more business. But the true change requires more than software. Our live coaching helps you understand and control the aspects of your business that matter most. It's about time for a new era of service, and we're leading the way. If you're ready to join the hundreds of other contractors who've been able to increase profit margins more than 50% within 6 months, visit sarah.tech today. That's Sarah, SERA.tech today.